You're listening to Second Advent Radio 101.5 FM. Stay tuned in for our upcoming program.
Radical Love, an informative and interactive program for every woman of every profession. Radical Love helps you discover and nurture the loving side, giving you the confident edge needed for success in a competitive world. Now here is your host, Diane Gomes.
And good evening to all of you. Good evening. Welcome to Radical Love. And I'm Diane Gomes. I just want to say how just delighted I am that you could join us today, join us tonight. Indeed, this program is geared towards women who feel unloved, women who have some issues, with childhood trauma. Maybe their self-esteem has been just dipped a little. Whatever it is, this program is for you. And it's not only for women. There are also some of the men, husbands, yes, some of the men who listen. We welcome you also. And we're glad that you could join us. We're glad that you join us every Tuesday evening. Truly, God has been doing a wonderful work. And I can tell you, friends, that many are the reviews from women who meet me, many are the reviews positively from women who, are in our Radical Love group, and they're just happy to have some program geared towards them, towards their hurting, their pain, towards their celebrating who they are. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. And we pray also for you that God will bless you. God will continue to show you who He has created you to be. Truly, you are, to use one of our Radical Love, our Rad Love sisters term, you are a champion. You were created special. You were created for good things. And the more we believe this, the more we speak it, is the more we live that life. So friends, I just want to say how much we appreciate you and thank you for being with us. Those of you who may be joining me on Facebook, I want to also send heartfelt wishes to you. We are just wonderfully blessed to have you this evening. All right. And now I have to say that tonight we're in for some heat. Okay. We know that relationship is something as human beings we cannot get away from. We are created to be social beings. And so tonight we will be talking a little about ourselves, who we are created to be, and why it's so important for us to know who we are. So when we enter into relationships, then we can bring something positive to the table instead of just looking for persons to suck everything out of them. Yes, and I know that has been the lives of many of us, especially as women, because we go through so many things, so many traumas. We look for validation, and sometimes it does not come. So today we have with us tonight, we have with us Martine, and she's a relationship coach. Yes, I'm so excited, and I know you are, ladies. And Martine, she's going to be talking to us, just telling us how we can improve ourselves as women and how we can also just bring wonderful things to the relationship. All right. So, Martine, welcome to Radical Love and also to the studios of Second Advent Media.
Thank you so much, Diane. I'm so thankful to be, and I've been looking forward to this, and just also acknowledging you for the beautiful work that you are doing, and I'm so honored to be on the show tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. I know that we have been talking, back and forth on WhatsApp to actually meet you in person tonight. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay. So, Martine, I'm going to ask you to, well, I know I cannot pronounce your surname.
You and the rest of Antigua.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. It's so. I'm gonna ask you to just tell our audience a little about yourself and what you'll be telling us tonight, what you'll be talking about.
Yes,
tonight.
it's my pleasure, Diane. Okay, so I'm originally from South Africa. That's where my accent is from. A lot of people get it wrong. They're like, "Oh, are you from the UK or this New Zealand, Australia?" But I'm originally from South Africa, but we traveled the world. I have 3 kids, 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Wow.
So I've been busy.
Yes.
But Diane, I'm just how I got here and how I got into relationship coaching. I'll just go back a couple of years, and I remember it so well. My kids were. They were still little. It was still those crazy years, and just one day I was sitting on my porch and I was exhausted and I felt so lost. And so, when you go through the childbearing years, you do everything for your family, but what happens is you never actually, you don't keep up with your own self, and then you feel like you don't know yourself. So I remember very distinctly sitting on my porch and thinking, is this all? Like, is this, there must be more. There must be a purpose. I felt so like I didn't have a purpose, that all I was doing was changing diapers and cooking and cleaning. So that's where I found myself. But you know what? I did nothing about it. For years, I did nothing about it because I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the support. I didn't know even where to start. So a couple of years later, I actually found my relationship actually blew up. It was to that point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that really was a turning point in my life. And it also forced me to really dig deep. And when your relationship is uncertain, you have to ask yourself. Like, it challenged everything about who I was. Who was I as a wife? Who was I as a mother, a daughter? Where did I fit in? And I had to really find my courage and dig deep and really recreate my life very intentionally. And that's also where all of this was born. I was so adamant that would not be my story. Like, my story would go on and I would find purpose in it. And I decided, well, if I'm going through this, I'm sure many other women feel the same, or many relationships go through the same thing. And that if I could help even just one person, it would be worth it. So that was where my whole relationship coaching started and was born, and here we are today.
Wow. That's, when I listen to your story, it sounds like so many other women, their story. It's like hitting rock bottom before we realize something is wrong. I've got to do something. The time is now.
Yes, and it's not, you don't have to wait so long. I wish I didn't, because I would have spared myself so much hurt. And but I mean, I still think everything works out as it should. But I would really like to start off, if you don't mind, start off with a piece of scripture that I'd like to read, and it's from Ephesians 2, verse 10.
Okay.
And it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." And what I love about that verse is just that we can believe and we can have faith that we have a purpose on earth. Not one of us was created just out of,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
we all have a purpose, every single one of us.
That is so true. That is exceptional. That's something that it has been one of my pet peeves. You know, I love to study about purpose. I love to talk about purpose. And I love to talk about it also. I know right now I'm studying the book of Esther, studying some of the chapters. And, you know, when I look at the story, it just never occurred to me that really we look at Esther as someone, when we talk about Esther and the book of Esther, she becomes that main character of importance. And this time around, looking at the book and reading it, I recognize that God placed Mordecai in her life as her guardian, and he also placed that eunuch that granted her favor when she got into the harem, the king's harem. And I recognize, wow, all the time we go through, but it's many of the times we don't see those individuals. We see the beautiful Queen Esther and, you know, her courage and her bravery, but
Yes.
it was these men who helped pushed her into her purpose.
Yes, I love that. That's so beautiful because it's true. Like all the people in your life, all the events in your life, everything that happens to you pushes you toward your purpose. So that's why the minute we make it wrong or we don't accept what happens to us, and although sometimes it's bad things, it's not great, but it really is your acceptance that there's something in there for you to learn and to grow. It's not always the meaning. I always tell my clients when I work with them, it's not what happens to you, it's the meanings that we attach to it. So that gives you that power to really rise above the things that happen in your life and really follow those little breadcrumbs towards your purpose.
Right. And that verse, how can we, you know, when we talk about purpose, that verse in Romans 8:28, it always comes, you know, for we know that all things work together. We didn't say that, the Bible didn't say that all things are good.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
But God uses everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, to bring us into our purpose where we fit into his kingdom, you know. And many of the times, the things that happen to us, especially in our childhood, those formative years, you know, that are traumas, and, you know, we're traumatized and so on. Sometimes all we can see are those things. But you're saying it is really just therapeutic, a gift, when we can look for the positive. Admit what has happened, look for the positive, and then we can move on from there. All right. So, okay. I'm giving you the opportunity to just tell us what your program is, and, you know, from there we're going to just follow, and I'm anxious to learn about, you know, how we can really view ourselves in a positive light so that we can also become that positive light within a relationship.
Yeah, so I think the thing that people get like the wrong way around is that they go into a relationship thinking that the relationship will fix them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so they go into the relationship thinking that person's going to add to me, or, you know, like it's going to make me whole, which is true in a way, but you can't come in. The relationship always has to start with you. Any healthy relationship has to start with you. And coming back to the purpose, like if you are if you're in alignment with that calling on your life, with the purpose that God has laid out for your life, that's when things go well. But the problem is when we deviate from that, when we act out of fear, out of doubt, out of lack, it takes us away from that alignment with God's purpose. And that's when we act in ways that are to our detriment instead of ways that actually, fill us up and empowers us and helps us with our calling, I should say.
Yeah. Because ultimately, we are created for that purpose.
Yes.
Many of the times, perhaps persons, you see, like you sat down and you asked yourself, okay, there must be more here. You know, I'm a mom, yes, and I know being a mom is a full-time thing.
Yes.
It's a full-time thing. It's a full-time job. And it's also ministry, you know, because you have these little minds to mold.
Yes, there's almost pressure on parenting, right?
Yes,
Because
and we know that as we continue looking at ourselves, many times we ask the question, what am I here for? There must be a purpose for my life. And it is good when we ask that, because the next step should really be go and seek it out. So we have God. We have persons who at times they can see, okay, you have the potential for this, you know, and it's good when we can listen to them. When we can pray about it, to find what our purpose is. And as we said earlier, Martine, many women, they ask themselves that. You know, when things are not going well,
yes,
they ask themselves that. How do they get, out of this rut? If somebody were listening now who may be asking that same question, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So I think for me, it was a really intentionally seeking joy in my life, like and going towards everything that cultivated gratitude and joy and love. So it's like it was almost a feeling. So I think if you can add more of that in your life, things that you are grateful for, and what we do as humans, we always focus on what we don't have.
Yeah.
Right? So we sit there, we're like, well, I can't be happy because I don't have
the car,
the house, all those things, a husband, all of that. But then the more you focus on those things, the less joy, love, happiness, all of that, the less you invite in. So it's really a very intentional decision of looking for the things that you already have.
Wow.
I always use the analogy of an acorn. So an acorn has the perfect blueprint. It cannot be anything else but an acorn, right? So if you're going to plant that acorn and expect a banana tree to come up, there's going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of your expectations aren't going to be met. So it's really getting down to knowing yourself and following the things, and very deliberately focusing on things like gratitude and joy, because we all have it in ourselves. If you have been called to do something, your blueprint, your acorn, has everything it needs right inside of it. You just need the environment, the nurturing, someone tending, or, you need to put yourself in the right environments so that you can bloom, so that you can become everything that you were meant to be. But I think what people miss is that they think they need something outside of them. But you don't. You were created perfectly to your blueprint, to become whatever you have the exact everything in you to be who you called to be.
Amen. Amen. I think you have been listening to Radical Love.
I must have been.
Really, that is one of the techniques that I use. Stop looking for love outside and look
Yes,
for love
it
on
starts
the
with you.
inside.
Exactly.
Because love is there. God has
Yeah.
created each of us with love. We are wired for love. And He has created us with love. Many times we think, and probably the movies that we watch, I don't know, the books we read.
All the movies, they're yeah.
Yeah.
They sail into the
yes,
sail into the
it's a
sunset.
sunset,
They
you
never
know?
have to work at their relationship again. Everyone's
Everything
happy.
is happily ever after. They lived happily ever after. And we're recognizing, okay, so the things that I thought as a child, when we become of age, adult age, we recognize, nah, that's not true at all. This is reality. And so many times we end up, as you say, looking at what we do not have versus what we have. We tend to be very negative. But I am realizing that God has blessed us with many things. And when we start,
Yes.
I guess in your coaching, you use the gratitude journal and so on.
Yes, we heavily do. I heavily rely on gratitude because here's the thing: if you are in a grateful state, fear and gratitude cannot live together. So, but sometimes we have to very intentionally choose it.
Yeah.
There's a bit of self-leadership in there too, because I think people are very swayed by their emotions, like they don't feel like doing something. When my husband and I had to decide whether we going to stay together or, separate paths, we didn't like each other very much at that point, but we both made a very intentional decision that we were going to work at it, and we very hard work that wasn't always comfortable. So sometimes those things lie in the decisions rather than how you're feeling. Like I feel like people really, they're in such comfort zones. And I think what sometimes happens is they don't step up to take that responsibility.
Yes, and we do know that, listen, if we want to grow, we have to step out of that comfort zone.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the only way. That's the only way.
And it can be very uncomfortable.
Oh, if it's not uncomfortable, it's not growth.
That is, it's such a true thing, especially for me. I've studied at a very late age, in my 40s, and I'm telling you, getting out of the high school, college thing, that was like pulling teeth.
Yes, yes.
It just happened when one day I looked at my grades and I said, Lord, these grades can't work. I do not love them. I do not want them. I want a change. And God answered that. But it took some squeezing, pushing, pulling, tugging, from me. The research, I had to start researching hard. I had to start memorizing things. I had to start or stop sleeping at 11 o'clock, and I had to start taking it down. If I nod, listen, you get up, you go again. You push forward until 2 o'clock, and so on. And I'm there saying, wow, I am full of energy, but I've got to sleep. Or else I know the sun is going to rise and I'm here. I've got to think about my health. And that stayed with me until now. Sometimes I have to drag myself from work in the evenings, my personal work, and just tell myself, no, Diane, you've got to sleep. you've got to go, because
Yes.
2:30 will meet me
Exactly,
there.
exactly.
3:00.
And
So,
that, I think that's such a good point, like self-care coming in. And when we talk about like self-care, the first thing that comes up is things like, a warm bath, candles,
Yes.
massage, which is great. Those things are good, but it's not truly self-care. Like self-care, I would define more as knowing yourself, knowing yourself so well. And then the opposite of self-care is that you live in the fear and the lack and the abandonment. So when you're not listening to your body, and as women, I think we're not so connected to our bodies anymore and listening, and we're not giving it the space to actually feel what's going on. Our bodies, there's so much wisdom in our bodies, but if we continually abandon what that information, like the sleep, that's a great example. Then we veer off that course. That's we go off that course of that calling, the alignment of, because now you don't have energy, you don't have.
Tell me about that one.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And we find that even as, especially as women, usually the women, we tend to be in touch, not only with ourselves, but with our surroundings.
Yes.
And that's how we pick things up a lot.
So women are very emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Women know they're multifaceted, where men are more single focused. Women can do that. But we don't, sometimes we shut that off.
Yes, yeah, to our detriment.
Yes.
I have to say. All right, to our detriment. So when we are in touch with ourselves, yes, we know that there are things like little pointers that the Lord tells us, and when we can just shut down the mind, the self, and say, okay, Lord, you show me what's going on, because I really don't know. As women, He normally leads us, and we come out on top. We have a lot to thank Him for, and dear friends, we just live that life within alignment, as Martine says, and in our purpose. We're going to take a brief break, and all right, I am told not yet, so we're going to continue. We're going to continue.
So I think actually, just to keep going, since we can for a few minutes or a second, I actually think a lot of that, why we don't listen to ourselves and why we veer off, is because of conditioning too. Like girls are very, from little, you're taught to nurture and care for others. So sometimes we over care to a point where we don't have enough to give.
Thank you, Martine. I tell you, you are one of our Rad Love sisters, because really, those are some of the things that we talk about. My verse that I would, the audience, they have heard it many times, Mark 12:30-31. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. That's with your entire being. And Jesus, this is Jesus talking, said, the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Look at it. The self is right there. It's not last. Love God. You love yourself just as you love your neighbor. And here it is. Jesus is telling us, Martine, that we can and we should love ourselves, because God created us. Why are we going to love others and hate ourselves? Unfortunately,
I actually don't
happens.
think you can really do that in a really constructive way.
Yes.
I don't think you can love your kids, your husband, your mother, father, family if you don't. We can only love to the capacity of like the acceptance that we have for ourselves.
Yeah. That is so true. That is so true. And all right, when we come back, Martina, I want us to dig a little bit more into this because our women, we want to teach them how to love. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Proclaiming the gospel and promoting the second coming of Jesus Christ. This is Second Advent Radio, 101.5 FM.
Looking for a cool, serene, Christ-centered learning environment for your child? The New Bethel Academy is the place for you. We offer a holistic approach in all subject areas, extracurricular activities, and so much more. We are always accepting new students. Visit us in Liberta, St. Paul, on the same grounds as the New Bethel SDA Church, or call us at 460-1086. Don't delay. Come in today. Here we follow Jesus, the Master Teacher.
Financial Perspectives. Tune in to Second Advent Radio on Mondays, commencing 6 September 2021 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and give a listening ear to the inspiring, invigorating, thought-provoking, and empowering discussions hosted by fellow Rachel Knowles and other professionals. So, housewives, teachers, preachers, plumbers, beauticians, electricians, musicians, and all other professionals, remember the time, Mondays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with a repeat broadcast from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Wow, Sunday mornings are just not the same anymore. Be uplifted, be encouraged, and experience God's power through prayer and thanksgiving with Sister Monica Fleming, Sunday mornings at 7:30 on Second Advent Radio. Get the opportunity to call in with your prayer requests and life-changing testimonies as you experience God's power. Join us, won't you?
Do you know that Second Advent Radio reaches over 20,000 online listeners weekly? This is made possible through your generous financial support and prayers. As a radio ministry, we have made it easy and convenient for you to give financially as we proclaim the truth of God's Word to the world. To support us financially, simply visit us at secondadventradio.org. Click on the online tab, fill in the blanks, and you are done. This is a timely message from your radio of choice, Second Advent Radio, 101.5 FM. Be blessed.
Hi friends, I'm Diane Gomes, creator of Radical Love Restoration and Transformation Technique. This technique seeks to help women who feel unloved, just discover that love and nurture that love that is within them. I want you to join me on the 6th of December right here on Second Advent Radio 101.5 FM at 7:30 p.m. Together, we will do wonders. We will laugh. We will learn from each other. We will cry. But most of all, we will live the lives we were created to live as women. I'll see you there. All right, and welcome back, dear friends. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Diane Gomes, and you are listening. You are watching Radical Love. Today we have our special guest with us, Martine. And Martine is a relationship coach, and she is just helping us understand who we are, why it's important for us to dig into ourselves a little, and to recognize that we are created special, so that when we enter a relationship, and it doesn't have to be a relationship with, a significant other, even as a family, when we do enter a relationship or we're within a relationship, what do we really bring to the table? Are we looking for fulfillment 100% from the other person, or are we looking within ourselves also? Because God has created us special. Are we doing that? And He has created us with love indeed. So now we are continuing, Martine, and we're understanding that some of our younger persons, they are also watching, they're listening, and they're getting involved in the discussion. All right. They want to know, if they would like to know, if what you're talking about, what we're talking about tonight, is only for the more mature folks, more mature women, more mature men. What say you?
I think it's so wonderful that young people are even asking these questions. You see, Diane, the problem is we don't have, in classrooms, there's no one that teaches us a relationship class. We don't know what to do. So I really love that young people get this very soon, because even if they're not in a romantic relationship, we have relationships, and relationships are the same.
Yeah.
Whether it's a relationship with your family, with your friends, teachers, so it's a skill. Relationships are a skill. They don't just happen. So if you start early and learn these skills of what it takes to build good relationships, you can practice that throughout your entire life, and it will be a skill that will put you ahead of so many other people in the world, because we are all conditioned by the relationships we grow up in and that we see, and but no one teaches us what a healthy, if you're not fortunate to have a healthy relationship modeled to you, there's no one out there that teaches this to you. So what I would say to young people is find healthy relationships to look up to practice, to see what does it take to build a healthy relationship.
All right. Okay. So there you have it. Relationships, they're just across the board. We're all social beings. We want to be respected. We want to be loved. And when we learn these little tidbits, these skills, one of them could be gratitude, just saying thank you, listening, to the other person, and really working on yourself, enhancement, self-growth, and not thinking that you know it all. But I know it saves us a lot of headache later on.
I actually think, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually do think that sometimes the people in long-term relationships can actually learn a lot from people in like just the start of relationships.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get it right in the first month, 2 months, 3 months, a year maybe. And then they think, okay, now, we've done the work, and then it slides. And that's the danger in long-term relationships.
All right. So it's kind of like the honeymoon phase. Everybody's happy, and the women, they still dress nicely. They do their hair and so on and so forth. And then after that, well, hey, I'm in curlers all over the place. I'm not dressing the way I used to. And it's not only women. We see some of the men, they were nice. They were opening the door for you. They were taking you out. And I don't know what happened. It's like, okay, well, are you cooking tonight? That kind of thing. Oh, well. You got to get the door for yourself, okay? They don't pull the chair out. Really. So you're right, Martine, that when we look at couples who they're in love, newly, they're in love and so on, instead of just thinking, we were once like that, perhaps persons can start to rekindle that. It would
Absolutely.
help.
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
It would help. All right. And we do have another question. I think we have two more. What? Okay. When do we get into a relationship? When is it you think it's a good time for a young lady, a young man to start dating?
I think it differs from person to person. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer.
Okay.
But what I will say is that before you get into a relationship, do the work of knowing who you are. Because I think too many young women get into relationships trying to be someone else. And they can't keep it up. So then, the trouble. So it's coming from that place of worthiness.
Yeah.
And knowing that, who you are is enough to attract the person that's going to, treat you with respect and kindness. And it's when we veer off that that alignment that we were talking about. So I would say, I think people should decide when that time is, but make very sure that you really know yourself and who you are, that you love yourself and your gifts that you bring to the world, and just having that acceptance of yourself before you get into a relationship.
Yeah, that's...
and that's actually for any age, to be honest. A lot of people have a relationship which maybe go sideways. It's a toxic relationship, but they jump immediately from one to the next. And if you don't, take the time in between relationships to make sure you're back into that alignment and really asking yourself the questions: what went wrong? How did I not show up? What did the other person, it's like investigating why you did what you did, because a relationship is like a dance. Each of us have our steps. There's never just one person in the relationship that's to blame. So it's always like taking that responsibility and the time to really figure out what exactly is going on here, or what's going on.
All right. I think that is so important. I really think it's important. Age-wise, listen, I find teenagers, if you really concentrate on yourself, building yourself, not being selfish or anything like that, but building yourself, really, knowing who you are, because to know yourself, to get to know yourself, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time. Have your friends and so on. But we find so many persons jump into relationship and it's like, I'm not happy if he doesn't call me. And you don't need that during your teenage years. You need to relax. Know yourself, travel, read books, do things, volunteer here, volunteer there. And stop, as Martine said, many times we look at the other person, but what about yourself? Whomever you're looking at, remember, they might not be your age. You ask yourself some questions, what are they really going through? They might be smiling when they're with me, but when I'm not there, what's happening? What's the truth of this whole thing? So I really would tell you, concentrate on those books, get to know yourself, travel, see things, read books. Just concentrate on who God created you to be. Try to find that out. And the only way you're going to find your purpose is really having a connection with the source. If you pluck the plant out of the ground, which is its source of nutrient, it dies. Our source is really God. You plug yourself into God. Let Him guide you and let Him lead you to what He has created you to do. What is your purpose? We come of age and many times we don't know what our purpose is. we're asking, what do I, you know, I mean, I have many skills, and what is our purpose? And that's another program that we're going to really be looking at, helping us find our purpose and knowing who we are. Martine, we have another question. Someone wants to know, what is a healthy relationship? What would you
Oh, that's such a great question. I love the
a
question.
healthy relationship? Yeah.
I would say, and this is just my opinion, I would say a healthy relationship is a relationship where both partners feel seen and heard and understood and respected.
Okay.
And they feel safe to just be themselves. There's an acceptance of each other's flaws and each other's gifts, and it's just a really nice flow of two people complementing each other.
All right, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of harmony, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Different notes, but we are harmonizing.
Yes, two people do not have to be the same. In fact, actually, most relationships, I think, two very opposites draw to each other. So that's not necessarily people have to be the same, but there needs to be a respect and a safety, and just that you accept each other and our flaws and our differences, and you can still have that balance and the harmony.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I know when we spoke, when we were talking on our conversation last night, you mentioned that many of the times we walk with our baggages, we walk with our loads into the other relationship. And you mentioned something. Normally, you know, well, sometimes there are persons who, well, one relationship finishes and then we jump into the other one without really taking time to process it and to detox, you know, of all of the things. We walk with all the bags, you know, we paint all the rotten stuff, you know, we paint them nicely and so on.
Yes.
And then
we present it in a package with a bow, yes.
Yeah. So why is it important really, you know, to have to deal with those issues before you enter into another relationship?
Oh, it's so important, because what happens is when you bring these things, and I talk a lot with my clients about triggers, so something that triggers you. So it's not exactly the same thing that happens in this relationship than in the past relationship, but you feel the same feelings. And that's really unfair on the person, the new person. If you're bringing in all those old stuff, like it's not fair on them.
Okay.
For them to bear the consequences of something that you haven't dealt with. And then that harmony can't be there if you've got old baggage and old triggers and things that you haven't dealt with. Because then it's not a harmonized relationship. And if we talk about, I'll talk a bit about this is switching over to long-term relationships now. Also, if you don't, because what happens is when we don't do the work for so long, and then all of a sudden we're like, we don't even know each other anymore. But if you don't do that work of reconciling, understanding where the last 10 years went and what you were like, why you're not, if you don't do that work, your kids, you have a responsibility to your kids to show them. And no relationship is perfect, because there's two imperfect people. But you have to keep doing the work. And your kids need to see how to resolve conflict, how to communicate. But if you don't model a healthy relationship, they're going to take your baggage
into
to their relationships. So I think that's so important. It's like I know I double answered your question, but it's...
No, it is good. It is good. I'm glad for that, because I think many times we're wondering, so, daddy did this person, I'm getting married, this person might just do me the same thing, he
Yes.
disappeared, or he had two other families, besides ours. So my husband is going to do the same, and we accept these things also.
Yeah, and that causes you to act out of fear, out of lack, and differently than you would have acted when you've actually healed that and dealt with that baggage. So that's why it is important for you to deal with those things before you go
All
into.
right.
Like each of us in the relationship is responsible for our own inner world. And then we can come together and we can be in relationship. So as humans, we are very, like even our self-worth is so, we're dependent as well as, what's the word? Codependent. So we're testing ourselves in
Yes,
relationship.
yeah.
So the other things people sometimes do is like, I've been hurt, I'm never going to be in a relationship again, which
Yes.
doesn't help because the
I know.
relationship shows you the areas where you need work in your life.
And
It
some
shines a
persons-
light on the unhealed areas in your life.
That's quite interesting. That is quite interesting. I know someone who really, they were so hurt that they never went back into a relationship. But that person struggles with anger.
Yes. And resentment, probably. It's probably resentment more than anger. And I tell you, if a woman struggle with resentment because they have never been taught to communicate their needs in a loving and kind way. That's why men always say women nag, is because we don't have the skills to actually. A nagging woman is actually just a woman that's not being listened to.
She's just crying out for something.
She's crying
you know?
out for a need to be met, but she doesn't have the skill to
Really
actually
communicate
communicate it in a loving,
Yeah,
kind way.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wow. This is quite deep.
We're going deep, Diane. We're
Yes,
going
this is
deep.
quite deep, and I'm seeing also a message saying that we need a part 2. All right. Yeah, I'm seeing that message that we need a part 2. Now, I really, because all of us, as I said, we are in some kind of relationship. I am finding, this is what I want to ask you. How do you find, okay, so you're from South Africa, you were living in Toronto, no, you're living here in Antigua, Barbuda. How do you find people? Do you find that we're different?
Yes, there's definitely cultural
Uh-huh.
differences, but I love that. I love that we are different but the same.
So
I
we're
really
very-
love people. So for me, it's like
Yeah.
I love learning. Like, and as I said, the cultural conditioning, each of us have our cultural conditioning
Right.
too, right? So, yeah, it's a whole melting pot of.
And that is one of the things that I really have to, I think about when you talk about like the baggages and bringing things from our past into this relationship, the different triggers. It is unfair to that individual now that you're hoping to start a new relationship with. And I'm seeing many of our women, and I know, ladies, you might not appreciate it, but I'm going to say it. I find many of our women, I'm talking about here in Antigua especially, they are angry. Look, they are angry, and you see it. It comes out. It pops up when you least expect. When we talk about relationships and so on, some persons it's from their families. They were either abused or whatever, but the anger, and that anger, it more or less just takes away this tender loving tender loving kindness, speaking softly, speaking kindly to your significant other. It's just not there. And so I would love us women of God, even if you're not a Christian per se, wherever you are, and you're angry or resentful, or just sit down for a while and think about the way you're feeling, your actions, and what you would love your actions. If you would love someone to behave towards you the same way you're behaving, as Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Whatever it is we mete out, really, it will be meted back to us. And so we have to look at our lives. We have to look at our state of mind. What is it we want from the other person? And we have to give that. We have to mimic that.
Yes, you have to be whatever you're looking for in that relationship. You have to become that, and you are the same.
All right. Okay, so we know that we're winding down. Martine, is there anything at all that you would love to tell our ladies who are listening, our men who are listening, and those who are viewing? Is there any point, before you make a closing remark, a brief closing remark, any point that you would love to tell them?
Yes, I think, because I think a lot of people probably know, like, how do I do that? How, it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but how? And I think...
So that's our part 2.
Okay. I will touch on it. I will say that I think it starts with self-compassion. There's too much or too many women judging themselves every day, shaming themselves, saying unkind things to themselves in their mind, or even out loud. And you're never going to love yourself if you don't start with your own self-compassion and the same compassion that God has for us.
Amen.
Like, if we can't take that and see the divinity in us, and we were created with so much love, but we need to start with ourselves and start with the compassion and love for ourselves and the grace that we receive, and really take that in.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martine. That is really what we believe in Radical Love, that it really begins with us. It starts in God, a God who loves us, and this God created us. Yes, in His own image, we have love within us. And we are created beautifully. Ladies, let's start telling ourselves that. Let's start believing that. Because we cannot love until we just find that love within ourselves and love ourselves. How can you love another imperfect being, and hate yourselves? We're not going to do that anymore, ladies. We're going to start loving ourselves and thanking God, having that gratitude. As Martine says, writing the things that God has really blessed us with. We want to do that. So I am inviting you. Remember, we meet here every Tuesday evening at 7:30, and we just want you to contact us. Contact me. You can contact the radio station. My email, you can send your email to Diane Gomes, that's DiaHanGomes @gmail. All right, do that. Let's link, and let us just start this community of women who support each other, women who love each other. Most of all, women who love God and love themselves. Today, I have to say, yes, our tea blend comes from yours truly, and it is thyme and parsley. Yes, beautiful, beautiful blend. And I'm telling you, ladies, when you drink this, you're going to feel so relaxed. Those of you with the high blood pressure, don't worry, this will go. It will take it down. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Martine. And of course, you're invited to come back. We have to have a part 2.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And
Yes.
thanks to all your listeners, Diane. Thank you for having me and for being such a gracious host.
All right. Thank you so much. You are most welcome. May God bless you, and see you next week, God's willing. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Radical Love. Please join us next Tuesday for another exciting program. You can contact Diane Gomes